Now, for those of you who haven't played this game before, you might be wondering why I'm going out of my way to remove all these ashen idols in this area. And that is because the idols are surrounding a boss arena, and in this boss arena, if the boss gets close enough to one of these idols, they will heal him, and that is something we absolutely do not want, so we're going to get rid of these preemptively. That way we don't have to worry about these idols healing the boss, because that will just make our life a whole lot easier. And that's because the upcoming boss is one of the hardest, if not the hardest boss in the entirety of Dark Souls 2. Still, removing all these ashen idols, in addition to rewarding us with the easier boss fight, also gives us shards of the Ashen Soul. And once we obtain all these shards, we'll be able to get Nadalia's soul proper. Fume Knight is an awesome boss fight, and as I said, he's arguably the hardest in the game. He actually gave me quite the challenge the first time I faced off against him. Thankfully, I beat him here on my second try, but he's still a very intimidating boss, and you constantly have to stay on your toes. But I think out of all the bosses in the game, he has some of the most compelling lore, so let's dive into that. Soul of the Fume Knight. Soul of the Fume Knight that guards the dungeon of Brume Tower. Rame was a distinguished knight who became infatuated with the Bride of Ash and settled in this land of smoke and fog. And this bit of lore right here confirmed what many Dark Souls fans had theorized about Rame, the Shield Knight of Drang Lake, because Rame was once a brother in arms with Velstadt who guards the king. But seeing him here in Brume Tower, we now know a bit more of what happened to Rame after his exile. It's really interesting to me how Rame had the ability to remove this darkness from Brume Tower, but he saw something in the blackness, in the Child of Dark, Nadalia, that he didn't want to get rid of. And this is explored a little bit more in his armor set. Armor worn by the Fume Knight. The rebel Rame, after his defeat at the hands of Velstadt, came to Brume Tower in search of greater strength. When he found it, it came not from a regal father figure like before, but from a newfound mother who gave him renewed purpose. And that's the part I just find so intriguing and fascinating and cool. Rame really had a great loyalty and admiration of King Vendrick, but there was some kind of clash of ideals between him and Velstadt, and he was dishonorably discharged essentially and banished from the kingdom. And he wanted to prove that he was the better Velstadt, and looked for new kingdoms to adventure in and face new challenges, finds a new person to look up to and to admire. And while it might have been a king like he expected, he found a new leader, a new person to serve in Nadalia. Of course, she was a shell of her former self, but even so, Rame lived to serve her at this point, and he swore off his shield and instead wielded two swords now, one imbued with the powerful dark flame of Nadalia, and one from his previous life to remind him of where he came from. The story of Rame is just so astonishing when you think about it, and he's a really tragic villain in some sense, in that he essentially just is trying to live out here the rest of his life and guard Nadalia, but of course, given the circumstances we're in, we can't let that come to pass. We have to stop Nadalia. We have to obtain the crown. We have to obtain the crown of the old Iron King. And in order to do that, we had to defeat Rame, the Fume Knight. But we're not quite done in Brume Tower yet. We have one more optional boss fight I want to complete, and it's one of my favorite 5 bosses in all of Dark Souls 2. It's a great fight. I always look forward to fighting this particular boss. But in order to reach this boss, we once again have to sort of bend the fabric of reality, to traverse through memory and time into the memory of the old Iron King. What I love about that fight is that it just feels like a grand duel. I love fighting Sir Alon and reading his moves, recognizing his patterns, and it's just like every step of the fight is just so fun and so exhilarating. It's hard for me to describe exactly what I love about this boss fight, but it's just absolutely one of my favorites in the game. I love that fight each and every time I get to experience it. We discussed Sir Alon's lore a bit earlier on in this playthrough, but now we get to see the final pieces of his lore, and we get to learn sort of what happened from his perspective and kind of sort of piece together the end of his story. Katana forged from the soul of Sir Alon. The captivating, undulating design serves to enhance this weapon's mystical allure. Alon came from the east, and soon became the Iron King's most trusted knight. When he departed, the old Iron King bequeathed Sir Alon's name to his Iron Warriors. But the fact that we fight him to the death, essentially, in the memory of the Old Iron King, kind of puts that to question, because time travel in this game is sort of weird, because when we face the Giant Lord, we were essentially traveling back in time to fight him, and that's why the last giant recognized us when we first encountered him. So it's my theory, at least, that Sir Alon didn't depart the kingdom. He might have been disagreeing with some of the Old Iron King's methods in the later part of his reign, but it's my theory that we're actually the one who killed, essentially, Sir Alon. We fought this great Eastern warrior to the death just as he was about to leave the kingdom. But Sir Alon is a great character, and he had a significant effect on the Old Iron King. If it wasn't for him, the Old Iron King probably would have remained a weak and enfeebled lord. He would have not been the great monarch he rose to be without the help of Sir Alon. And it's because of this that the Old Iron King admired him so that he wanted to leave Sir Alon's namesake in all of his knights, and name all his warriors, all his most trusted knights, after this Eastern warrior who helped him rise from essentially rags to riches. There's still a lot of mystery surrounding what exactly Sir Alon saw in the Old Iron King, but again, that's kind of up for us to decide.
Hello there. Come back again.